Hello, everyone. This is Lauren Steiner, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Robust Opposition. I have another remote show coming to you from the Gaza Solidarity Encampment at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And I have a special remote correspondent who I'm going to bring in right now. Her name is Keisha Thomas, and she's there with some students in her screen right now. And Keisha, I met in a chat called Support Student Encampments, and a friend of mine from the Occupy Wall Street movement set it up. She invited Keisha, and Keisha posted today that she was at the encampment, and I said, can you live stream on my show tonight with some of the participants? And she said, yes, so here we are. The magic of the internet and phones and live streaming and everything. So Keisha, why don't you introduce yourself and tell first what brought you to this encampment, because you're not a student anymore, and then you can introduce the students that you have there.
Okay, absolutely. I would love to. Forgive me, I'm a little tired, and I'm going to go forward with this. My name is Keisha Thomas, and I'm a human rights advocate. I've been in this for over 30 years. Can you believe it? I thought I could retire, and I thought that we were moving forward. But unfortunately, our governments are pulling us back and not doing right. Anytime there's something that's not doing right, we've got to stand up and take a stand. What really brought me back there were a couple of things. First is I made history right here on this campus in 1996, where I ended up saving a Klansman that a crowd was going to beat. And the reason I did that for two reasons. Number one, I believe that as an American, we have the right to say whatever it is that we want to say. That's freedom of speech. That's the First Amendment that we do have. What we don't have the right to do is put our hands on anybody. That was something that was so profound. I feel like when it comes to certain groups of people, they have that right. They get that Bill of Rights and that protection. You know, we've seen it where up and down the streets, we've had different people who were absolutely anti-Semitic, that were saying the worst horrible things, that Jews will not replace us with tiki torches. That was anti-Semitic, but they were protected under the First Amendment. Here we have peaceful protests and young students from across the country that are putting their education, their future on the line. And to see adults who the future does not belong to them and what they're passing on, to physically and say online and in person that they want to put their hands on these peaceful protesters, these young people, and ruin their future. I, as a Generation Xer, had to come out of retirement and stand up and come down here and be part of this encampment to protect this future, to be an ally with them and say, hey guys, you are not alone. You are not alone. These people have never, I don't know if they've ever been to Gaza, but it's a simple fact that something in their heart says, when we see through our phones and this technology that what the government and media is telling us is not adding up. These brave people right here took an action. Do you know how scary it is to face the police? Do you know how scary it is for them to tell you that we can expel you, all of that hard work? But this future generation has said, you know what, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we make sure that we live in a world where young people, young kids, children, the innocent, are not unalived. If that's not more powerful and passionate for us to get up and do something, I just don't know what is.
Well, I want to thank you for that introduction. And now I want to go to the students and ask each of them to introduce themselves. If they only want to use their first name, that's fine. And to say, first of all, what brought them to this cause?
Hold the camera so you can see.
Hi, my name is Avi. I'm here at the encampment.
My name is Rachel. I just graduated from the university in environmental studies.
And my name is Josiah. I'm a researcher here.
Okay, tell them why you came here. What brought you to be a part of the encampment?
Go reverse order. So I am a member of SAFE, which is UFM's chapter for Students for Justice in Palestine, or of Students for Justice in Palestine. SAFE stands for Students Ally for Freedom and Equality. We have a coalition, a Tahrir coalition. After seeing the Gaza Solidarity Encampments go up at other universities, we thought that we'd do the same. And then the National Students for Justice in Palestine chapter put out a call, and we decided that we'd go ahead and proceed with our encampment. And so I've been here ever since we started, which was, I think, 3 weeks ago or 3 Mondays ago.
I am a member of the Jewish Voice for Peace chapter here at the university. Yes. And so I think it's part of my duty as someone who practices Judaism to heal the world, tikkun olam, and to put my energy into helping others who can't help themselves at this point.
I am also a member of Jewish Voice for Peace JVP at UMich, and for me, it's just, there's a much longer story as to how I got involved.
Tell us, we got time.
Okay, well, for me, about a year ago, a little bit longer at this point, my grandma sent me a packet of information which had just everything that my family had experienced during the Holocaust. It was like tracking exactly where which family members had been, which camps, which ghettos they had been in. And along with that was a picture of my family members right as they got off of the train at Auschwitz. And, there's a look in someone's eyes that you can see when they're undergoing a genocide. It's haunting, and you can never forget it. It's a combination of a lot of different things. There's fear, there's anger, there's rage, there's depression. But beyond that, there's sort of a deep, emptiness where you know that your entire world is gone. You know that even if by some miracle you survive, your family likely won't. The people you know growing up won't survive. The schools that you went to will be gone. The community centers that you lived in, your religious institutions, all of that will just no longer exist. Your entire life that you knew that you had is gone, even if by a miracle you survive. And, seeing that look of understanding of genocide, that deep emptiness that combined with all these other emotions of fear and anger and rage and hatred, seeing that, we can see the videos. I've seen the videos coming out of Gaza. I think we all have at this point, and it's the same exact look in people's eyes. It's this look of fear and anger and hatred and depression, but beyond that and deeper than that, there's a real deep emptiness. There's this look of understanding that these people in Gaza, if tomorrow the bombing stops, then their school is gone, their religious institution is gone, their family, many of their family will be dead, many of their family will be martyred, and there's that is the life of people that are experiencing a genocide. And once you understand that, if you have family members that have experienced that, and you understand that, you cannot be a person of good conscience and not do anything in your power to try and stop it.
Well, I relate to that also as a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, and also as someone whose grandfather was the first to donate to bring Jews from the Holocaust to Palestine back in 1947. And yet he and my father, who gave so much money to Israel over 5 decades, would be turning in their graves if they could see what the right-wing, actually fascist government of Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. So I'd like to ask you, how do you feel, having just said that, when people, in the mainstream media, or even fellow Jews, say that these encampments are anti-Semitic or that they feel unsafe?
Well, we've seen a lot of people coming through saying all sorts of stuff, all sorts of crap. And what I'll say is that, it's more than just JVP is here to protect SAFE or be the Jewish people that are there. SAFE has at every single step brought us in and asked us to not just as a token, SAFE has asked us to collaborate in this project, to work together, to really build a movement together. It's been honestly the solidarity there and the amount of ability and the solidarity that SAFE has shown to us Jewish people at U of M has been immense. And it's the only time I've ever felt unsafe in any way, shape, or form was when a few of us JVP members were doing a silent, peaceful counter demonstration against a Zionist rally here, and Zionists were coming up and yelling at us and shouting at us and like telling us they wanted us to die. You know, that's the only time I've ever felt unsafe. I've never felt unsafe with the Palestinian, the Muslim, the Arabs, the everyone that's been here organizing in this space. It's more than just not feeling safe. You know, I felt, you know, positively and absolutely accepted in a way that like even the Jewish community, you know, doesn't really like accept anti-Zionism.
Right. And
Yeah, we have someone else that wants
I'd like to add.
right.
I'm someone who I've had many issues with my family trying to talk to them about my beliefs. They feel very closely tied to Israel. But last Friday, I attended a Shabbat here. It was right after my graduation, and I remember it being a smaller Shabbat, and that's because everyone who didn't feel like they needed to be at the Shabbat or that they could be at the Shabbat was facing off with the police in an escalation. And it just felt like a beautiful show of solidarity that I was able to practice my faith while other members of the encampment protected the encampment and moved forward its positions. And that, I think, was a beautiful display of the way that I feel accepted and safe here and a part of the movement, and not someone who can conditionally be a part of it, but someone who's fully accepted.
So I think when, you know, Jews, and I think there are Zionist Jews that say they feel unsafe, I think what they really mean is they feel discomfort, which is very different than feeling unsafe. I think they feel that their longtime beliefs are being challenged, and that makes them uncomfortable. And I could see why it does. I'm wondering if if you guys have been able to have conversations with Zionist Jews who you've been able to open their eyes a little bit to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I could take this one. So I think a couple of days ago, like 2 or 3 days ago, a Zionist entered our encampment and he wanted to strike a conversation. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. And you know, unlike the majority of Zionists who like come through, like open Zionists who come through are very antagonistic, he definitely wasn't anywhere near antagonistic. And so I thought, okay, I'll engage in the conversation and like hear him out. And he was telling me about how his family immigrated to Israel from Ukraine, and that like growing up in Ukraine, he had to deal with like a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe. And he was sold this vision of Israel of like a safe place for the Jews, and a place where like Jews would be like protected and like validated in their identities. And then he moved to Israel, and then he learned that, you know, in order for this like dream to come into fruition, or like the dream that was sold to him, it was done so with the displacement and like the displacement and the violence committed against Palestinians. That was really disappointing for him, or to him. And so we continued our conversation. He didn't like really acknowledge anything else about like the plight of Palestinians after that point. And so I asked him quite like frankly, and I said, you know, hey, you know, I understand that, you know, growing up, you were so division of Israel. Your family was too. You immigrated here, or like immigrated there. But now that you know the truth about Israel, or like now that you have more context, you know, how are you changing the way that you like interact with Israel as a concept? You know, like you understand that land was stolen from people. You understand that it was done so in a very violent fashion. You know, it's one thing to like consciously say something, but like does your subconscious like align with that? And it was a very thoughtful conversation, you know, because it just provided more insight for me about like his perspective related to Israel, which is actually a perspective I've heard before. And then I think for him, I was just like very, very honest with him. You know, I grew up Christian and like in the Bible Belt South. And so we're also sold a very particular vision of Israel. And it wasn't until I got to college I learned like more about like what that vision entailed. And I was like, okay, you know, it's like my former self, I'm like, okay, my former self didn't really know, but like now that my current self has more context, you know, I try to take steps to make sure that like I'm feeling consciously and subconsciously, that's manifested through action as well.
I'd like to ask about the demands. What have been your demands? Has anyone from the university met with you to discuss these demands? Or have they just reacted very, to try to suppress your encampment?
Yeah, so far what we've experienced is that our demand is that we've done like hundreds and thousands of hours collectively of research into the university's endowment, and we know that about 6 billion, that's billion with a B, of the $18 billion in the endowment goes towards venture capital funds, hedge funds, things of that nature that are very heavily invested in the genocide, that are very heavily invested. The university invests in companies through these hedge funds like Boeing and Lockheed Martin that are actively building the planes and bombs that are being used to kill Palestinians right now on the ground in Gaza. Beyond that, they're investing in companies like, is it Skydio? That's building like automated drones that are being used to surveil Palestinians. And there is, dozens and hundreds more like problematic companies that they are invested in through the endowment. And so what we are asking for is not some limited ask. We are asking for full divestment. We are asking for the university to divest these funds. We are asking for them to come and meet with us, and we are asking for them to work through this process of divesting all funds that are going to genocide, all funds that are going to the Zionist project. We are asking for them to do all of that. And, really, I think it's important that what we're doing here, I think it gets a lot of media attention because, it's students protesting, it's this and that. And that's important. But really, this is about Gaza. This is about divestment. This is about Palestine. This is not about any of us. This is about the movement and what we're trying to stand in for. This is about, freeing Palestine, truly freeing Palestine and ending Zionism in its entirety in the long run. We are here for the cause of liberation. And did you want to ask? Okay.
Yeah, no, I also asked, what has been the university's reaction? Have they met with you to discuss these demands? Because we know now, Amy Goodman had 4 students on Democracy Now! From universities like Brown and Rutgers and Washington, Evergreen in Washington, and just today, Cal State Sacramento that agreed to divest. So some universities are responding positively, at least starting the process. What has been the response of University of Michigan?
Can I start this off?
Yeah.
So, we've been, I say we, but I'm primarily talking about SAFE, Students Allied for Freedom and Equality, which is our SJP chapter, has been in this movement and heading up this movement for decades. Divestment has been a demand for decades and decades at this point. There's been endless numbers of attempts to arrange meetings with the university, with the Board of Regents. There's been endless numbers of attempts to raise awareness and, build towards this sort of cause. And this has been happening for decades. At every single point, we're met with either the university ignoring us or trying to co-opt our movement or repression. And in the six months plus since the acute phase of the genocide has begun, what we've seen is just absolute repression or an attempt to just, suffocate all the air from our movement. So, for example, we had a sit-in in November asking for the regents, not even, just asking for a meeting, not saying you need to do everything right now, just please meet with us. We asked our university president, who has to this point refused to meet with us in any capacity. We have asked him to meet with us, and instead of meeting with us, he arrested us. Beyond that, we've faced repression numerous times. We have probably close to 50 students that have been detained or arrested and ticketed at this point. But, really, the core thing is that, it's not about the students that have been ticketed. It's not about any of that. It's about the fact that they still won't meet with us. And so far at the encampment, we've been constantly watched and surveilled by police and an outside security firm that the university has hired for this. At the same time, as they're surveilling us, though, they won't show up. They won't come down, and they won't sit down at the table and actually discuss divestment. It's a non-starter for them now, as you know, in this, as much as it's been a non-starter for years and years and decades and decades. And did you want to add anything? Yeah.
I mean, if I were,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about faculty members. Are faculty members coming to show support? And also, what about politicians like Rashida? She's a congresswoman from Michigan.
Yeah, so we do enjoy faculty support from a generous amount of faculty, and they demonstrate that support through different means, whether it's like verbally encouraging students to like keep up the good fight, or like being understanding that students who are fighting genocide, might need a day or two extra to complete an assignment, or like, for example, we had a day of disruption, and one of the call to actions for professors, for faculty and staff, was to like halt work. And so a lot of professors canceled class in solidarity. In terms of politicians, I think as a coalition, we're pretty weary about politicians because they're shape-shifty, when it's convenient to be like part of this cause, we'll be part of this cause, and they'll show up for a photo op. But then when it comes to like speaking up in the field, that's not like always reliable, And so I think our stance on politicians overall is, do the work that you need to do as an elected official to get the job done. The photo ops don't really matter. And very much so the mindset among students here is that, it's not about us as individuals necessarily, but more about our contributions to the movement, So we think about like the movement and whether or not we're like advancing the movement, or like how we're advancing the movement, as opposed to like centering ourselves in this effort.
Well, I get that. And, at Occupy, we didn't even allow politicians, elected officials, or candidates to come and address us. But I would think you would make an exception for Rashida Tlaib, who is actually Palestinian and who's been doing a yeoman's job on this issue in the Congress.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, Rashida wrote a letter in support of our efforts on the ground. She was here on the ground the other day, and she like dropped off supplies and then left. So like again, Rashida is like kind of an exception as like a Palestinian politician, but in terms of like other politicians, no.
Now, I'd like to ask if any of you were at the disruption of the commencement. I have some footage of that I could play for you, but first I want to see if any of you were there and how you felt about that action.
Which commencement?
Didn't you have University of Michigan have a commencement the other day that you disrupted?
That was the graduation.
Are you talking about the one in the big house? Because there were a couple of disruptions that day and in prior days.
Yeah, I guess they call it the big house. I'm not familiar, not being from Michigan. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's Michigan Stadium.
I think I was maybe the only one.
If you were there, I was like coordinating from afar. So.
So beforehand, I had bargained with my Zionist parents that if I didn't participate, they would behave around me and respect the protesters. So I was not protesting. However, I did see them as a reporter for the student radio station. I've heard lots of audio clips from people who were recording. And there were some pretty profound exchanges between protesters and counter-protesters. Many statements of like, arrest them, get them out of here. I've waited 4 years for this. And also some more unsavory maybe slips of racism, quite frankly, and vile hatred. It was interesting to watch students kind of boo and applaud as, the plane saying divest now or Jewish Lives Matter circle the arena. It honestly, to me, felt a little like a dream to have all of this like huge issue that really is centered in Palestine. It's not centered in Ann Arbor. Have this large, like, celebratory circle in a way. But I thought that the protesters did a great job.
Yeah,
and there were some other disruptions as well, including a brunch at the Union that was held to celebrate graduation that I believe was shut down as well. Were you?
I was around.
That's all we're gonna say about that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been something we've been involved in for, months and months and months. And, like, we understand that, like, no one thing we do will bring the regions to the table. It's really the collective effort of showing them that, until they do divest, until they come and they meet with us, and not just like, grab a few leaders and put them in a closed door meeting or something, but until they really do come down to the table in good faith and divest, they will have the university functions be disrupted. That will not stop. That won't stop this year. That won't stop with the summer. They cannot stop. We will be here until the university divests. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's just it. We're gonna be here until they divest. The number of people that frankly they've brought into the movement through their repression has been massive. And there's nothing they can do save meet with us on with clear eyes and actually discuss divestment and actually work towards that concretely that they can do to mollify us. There's nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to show about a minute of footage from this, and then I want to talk to you about the election and the uncommitted movement. So meanwhile, I'm going to try to share the screen here.
Okay, we got like 4 more minutes.
I know.
But but it feels like 5 minutes. This is so engaging. It's like, you know what I mean?
No, they're silent.
Congratulations to the second lieutenant.
Not about you. Walk out of here. USA! 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 USA!
It feels as though it is the only thing that I can do. I cannot operate as business as usual. I cannot engage in anything celebratory because we have all been under such immense grief for the last 7 months.
Yeah!
Okay. Yeah, so that looks fun. I wish I were there. It reminded me of when we disrupted, I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders in the 2016 Democratic National Convention, and we disrupted a lot. And it was interesting because we had some chants, no TPP, ban fracking now, Black Lives Matter, and no more war. And the Hillary people got a hold of our chants, and they instructed their people, when they chant Black Lives Matter, chant with them. But when they chant no more war, you chant USA, USA. And that was really chilling because that's when I realized the Democratic Party had become the party of war. So that's a good segue into the Democratic convention. I plan to be there in August. Are any of you planning to get involved in the uncommitted movement and to go protest at that convention? Or is that not part of your agenda?
As for the uncommitted movement, we already have a relationship with them on campus. We had a demonstration on campus several weeks ago before the encampment, and we are in touch with like some of the lead organizers of the campaign. Some of them have even like swung through the encampment multiple times. So yeah, people are pretty much like already involved. In terms of me personally, I wasn't planning to go to the Democratic convention, but like I wouldn't be surprised if some of my peers did.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty epic. It's going to make 1968 look tame. I don't think Biden really knows what kind of anger there is out there. I mean, how do you react to the news that came out today that for the very first time he has withheld weapons? Apparently, what was it, 118,000, 2,000 pound bombs, and no, 1,800 2,000 pound bombs and 1,700 5,000 pound bombs he's not sending. And also today he said, tonight at 7:09, breaking news, if they go into Rafah, they're going to not send any offensive weapons. Do you feel like that is any kind of success?
Okay, so I would like to personally answer this question. I know I said I would give it to the kids, but if you look at what he said, right? So all of those are missiles or bombs or whatnot that are aggressive. So anything that's for the Iron Dome, they're still going to send things for the Iron Dome. So it's not a complete and total shut off that we would like to have. The second thing is that we already know that there are operations and they are already violating the Geneva Convention. They're already in Egypt where they shouldn't be. So I think that we keep doing this thing where we're like, okay, here's the line, don't cross that line. And then Benjamin Netanyahu crosses a line and then we create another line. So I think personally that these are nothing more than just little things that he's throwing out that have no, like he's trying to bite but with no teeth. He's putting it out just to like get our fuse off and say that we have a small victory, but he's not following it up. It should have been a hard line when those people, those Israelis, were stopping humanitarian aid from going into Israel. That should have been the hard line, right? If we have children that are starving to death, that should have been the hard line. So now all of a sudden, if you do that, I'm going to slap your hand. No, we're beyond that. We don't believe. I will speak for myself. I don't want to speak for you all. I am no longer going to be a black woman that's a pick-Misha for the Democratic Party. I have spent, like so many other of us, with the Black Girl Magic, going out here to the urban communities and to the people of color, and then having them, register to vote and saying, yes, please vote for Biden because, Trump is not an option. They have used a fear tactic against us. Biden is a war criminal. We have to accept that. We cannot accept the simple fact that because he has a D in front of his political affiliation, that he is for us. No, that D stands for a dick. That's exactly what he is. Excuse my language.
No, I agree with you.
But we have no more time for this. So you don't go into Rafah. You're already in Rafah. You're already there. They have already dropped the pamphlets and told these people to go. Where are they going to go? Where else are they going to go? I've been here. This is my second night. I'm tired. Can you imagine months on top of months on top of months? And then you have a baby on your hip. You lose your husband. You lose your family. Your whole infrastructure is gone. And all of a sudden we're going to say, oh, you go into Rafah. I'm really going to stop it. No, we're over this. I'm over it. So I hope I, didn't offend or, step across the line with you guys, because you're standing right behind me as I say these things.
Well,
this man is
yeah, no, trust me, I didn't even vote for him the first time.
I know I was a Bernie bro myself, and Bernie disappointed me. I mean, he's circling back now, but it's a little too late. You can't unalive somebody. You can't snatch somebody back up from the grave. We cannot take the mental things that these children have seen. These little kids, I'm not going to be okay. How can we expect these little young children from Gaza, from the West Bank, to be okay?
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me how progressive Jews that I've organized with on multiple issues have now, we can't talk anymore. It's like they have this blind spot, and there's even a term for it, PEP, progressive except for Palestine. And I just don't understand how they don't see that this concept, this phrase that we said since the show and never again, doesn't apply to everyone.
Well, because here it is. Okay, so it's willful ignorance wrapped up in a little bit of, I'm taking the word away from white supremacy. White supremacy suggests that the white people are better than us. We need to call it what it is. That's white delusion. Okay, we're not calling it white delusion. They do not want to accept it because it's not going to be in their favor. It is not going to be in their favor anymore. They're not going to be on top anymore. We have never been able to get past this Iron Dome of anytime you criticize Israel, it's anti-Semitic for years. And we've given these
Can I jump in for half a second?
Yeah, this is y'all's interview. I just
No. So I wanted to add on to everything she was saying because she was spitting. But specifically for the university,
Okay.
what we know, yeah. No, it's appreciated. It's appreciated. What we know for the university is that our board of regents, they are not. It's not just that like, oh, they have some pie in the sky ideological belief in Zionism. They're materially, politically, and ideologically tied up with Zionism. They have investments in these companies. They have investments in these companies directly as the Board of Regents, not just through the endowment, that are facilitating these companies that are facilitating the genocide. They're friends, the people they know. They are politically invested in Zionism. It's the people that they hang out with, as well as, you know, their material investments. And beyond that, a lot of them are explicitly and ideologically saying that they support the Zionist project. You know, and you know, we support Palestine, a free Palestine from the river to the sea, and they support Zionism. You know, like there's not a room for like, there's not a room to like sit in a closed door meeting behind people's back and like have a closed door conversation about that. Like, they need to either come to the table and be open about everything, and, you know, talk to us in good faith, or they, you know, will experience greater and greater disruptions to the functions of the university until they do. There's no in between. There's no middle ground there.
Let me ask you about that, because now the summer has come, and I was listening to two Emerson students on Richard Medhurst's show today, and they were saying how a lot of people have already left campus, and they're just talking about how they're going to get them back in the fall because they're going for summer jobs or internships or what have you. And yet, when I was on the UNC campus in Chapel Hill last week, she said that she and many other people had canceled their summer plans. So what is your sense there at Michigan? How many of you three are going to be staying through the summer? And what is your sense of the rest of the encampment?
I'm going to be here until divestment, but everyone has different thoughts and opinions on this. So maybe I can pass the phone around.
I will be here as long as I am able. Managing protesting and encamping and fighting for what I believe in with disability is not the easiest thing, but it's something that I think is important.
I love that.
And I will also be here for the foreseeable future, including the summer. I think as far as like this cause in particular is concerned, you know, when we think about Zoom University and the way that impacted institutions, Zoom University or the Zoom era basically reset the student bodies, right? It's like a lot of traditions and like organizing or like activism or just like student traditions in general were lost.
I'm
But then when
sorry,
you look at
can you define that? Are you referring to COVID? Is that what you mean by Zoom University?
oh yes, sorry, during the COVID era, when all of our classes were remote, that's like the more formal way of referring to that era. You know, a lot of the culture at different campuses was reset, you know, because the students who were entering hadn't spent a full year in college yet. And the fact that like Palestinian advocacy survived that like reset at the University of Michigan, I think is really a testament to how committed students are to advocating for divestment. And then even when you look at like tactics that have been used previously to try to like, I guess like lessen the amount of students who show up to protest. Like for example, at one of the Board of Regents meetings, normally the Board of Regents meetings are scheduled for 4 p.m. and we host a demonstration outside of them. There was one Board of Regent meeting, which I think like 48 to 72 hours beforehand, the time was changed from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. You know, and we're assuming that the logic behind doing that was that less students would show up to a morning demonstration. But not only did we have that morning demonstration and have a sizable crowd, we still proceeded with our 4 p.m. demonstration that afternoon. And then in future days, we conducted 4 different demonstrations on campus simultaneously, and we conduct disruptions simultaneously. So yeah, there's really, like even if students like leave campus, like the commitment is still here and people will find a way to be involved in advocacy.
Well, I want to thank you all for your commitment. It really gives me hope and joy to see so many young people. And quite frankly, in a way, I love the fact that Columbia cracked down, because within 2 weeks, there are now 129 encampments in the United States and around the world. And I may even be, I have a friend in Naples. I may even be doing a remote interview with him from the encampment at the University of Naples, possibly as soon as Friday. But in the meantime, I want to give everybody a last word. Anything that you want to promote, we're going to put the social media handles into the comments, and also that butter link, which is still coming up as a bad link, but you might want to talk about what you're asking people to donate to.
Wait, if someone else wants to go first, I want to think about my takeaway.
Yeah, I would just want to share a short experience and then just like refocus on what we're about. So I had a moment like of bliss a few days ago. There was, some, frat boys, whatever, that were out that were chanting like USA, USA. And then there was a group of like, young, like Arab and Muslim, like 10-year-olds that were playing soccer, and they were chanting Palestine, Palestine. And I got to tell you, they shut up those drunk frat boys real quick. But it does speak to something. It speaks to the nature of the youth and the struggle. Like the youth, our youth, and not just like speaking of students, but like even those people, if they were in Gaza right now, they would be being bombed, they would be being killed. And this is what we do this for. We do this for Gaza, for Palestine, for the children that are experiencing this genocide right now, for everyone that's experiencing this genocide. And there is no way to stop us. For the university, there's absolutely nothing they can do save to like have real open and honest discussion from a place of good faith, concretely moving towards divestment. Like we will, we say this all the time. We chant, disclose, divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. And that's true. We will not. And so long as like we are, so long as we are alive and so long as we are together, this cause, it's a movement within our hearts, and we will not stop. And it's not just that we're going to continue going. So long as the university does not meet with us and does not come in good faith, we will continue to escalate. We will continue to do this because there can be no normal life during a genocide, and there can be no normal life for the university while kids are being killed in Gaza. And, and our small part that we can play in that is getting the university to divest. That's all I have to say.
I guess I'll say you can keep up with the encampment at Tahrir's Instagram, which is Tahrir Yumish, TAHRIR Yumish. And also, I'm so grateful for other protesters and writers and journalists from Gaza who are teaching me and teaching us, and we're teaching each other every day. And I just like to iterate that Zionism will never guarantee safety for Jews, and we'll never have liberation for all until we have liberation for Palestine, and we can't stop fighting for it.
And then in addition to what my colleague said, I think for those who are like on the fence or are like afraid to speak up, I think subconsciously the majority of people look at what's happening, and they understand that it's wrong. They understand that genocide is wrong. They understand that oppression is wrong. And so it's a matter of taking what they already know in their hearts, and backing that up with action. And for anyone who's like afraid to do that, at least the way that I got over that fear was by asking myself, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen to me here in the US? And how does that compare to what's happening to Palestinians? And that provides a sense of like moral clarity on the issue that makes it like easier to speak up, even if you start small and you just like work your way gradually. I will say time is of the essence though, because like the longer these sort of conversations go on, the more people who are killed in Palestine. And so yeah, free Palestine.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for helping to set this up, Keisha. What was our chant and occupy? We are unstoppable. Another world is possible, or something like that. That's what that put me in mind when he was saying that. Keep up the good fight. You guys are on the side of the angels, and I think we will win. eventually.
Absolutely. We're going forward together and not one step back.
Thank you very much, and have a good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Share the show, people. Bye-bye.
We will.